or not? I continue my session now. Please respond anyone through chat box. Is it my voice is clear? Please respond anyone through chat box. I continue my session. Okay, thank you. Thank you, 37. Okay, in the last class, we are discussing about different types of storage devices. So nothing but we are discussing about the memory storage, right? So cache memory, main memory, flash memory, magnetic disk, and magnetic tape. So all those are the nothing but related to the storage type devices. Okay. And another thing we are already discussing about the lock management. So what is the purpose of using the lock? So lock is nothing but used for to assign one data item for the particular transaction. Okay. So the main advantage of using the locks is so when we are based upon the sharing data items by the more than one transaction. So that means more than one transaction wants to perform the operation on the same data item, then by using lock, we can provide the isolation between them. So otherwise occurring the conflicts. So maybe those are maybe related to the read-write conflict or maybe write-read conflict or maybe write-write conflict like this. So we are based upon to the concurrent execution of the transactions with the help of logs only. Okay, in the last class we are discussing about that. And another thing, in the case of locks, we are discussing about the two types of locks. What are they? Shared lock and exclusive lock. The name is implies. If it is a shared lock, able to perform the read operation. And so even though one data item is acquiring the lock in the shared mode for the particular transaction, then remaining transactions also acquiring the lock if it is a read operation. So that means if it is a read operation, there is no problem. So we can allow any number of transactions at a time to performing the transaction. Am I right? Okay. But in the case of read write operation, so that is not possible. So that type of the thing will be done by using the exclusive lock. So that means here each and every time, first of all, transactions send a request towards to the lock manager. So I want this particular data item. So and I want in this mode. So that means so in the last class we are already seeing with the so observe with the example. Am I right? So if it is a shared mode, so lock S of A. So what it means? So that means particular transaction sending the request towards to the lock manager. So in the shared mode, acquiring the lock on the data item of A. Okay. So for example, if it is a lock X of A, what it means? So that means the shared data item acquiring the lock by that particular transaction in the exclusive lock mode. So that means once the data item is acquiring the lock in the exclusive lock mode, then no other transaction able to acquiring the lock until the completion of the current transaction. That is the main advantage of exclusive lock. Okay, please remember all these topics. Okay, now today we try to discuss about the topic is crash recovery. So in the last classes also we are saying about this. This is the one of the advantage of DBMS also. In the case of first unit, we are discussing about that. So if you observe the DBMS structure or DBMS architecture, so which type of in which type of we are drawing the uh, architecture of DBMS. So in the case of first layer, in the case of first layer, we are discussing about the different types of users. Am I right or not? So naive users, sophisticated users, application users, program users, specialized users. Am I right? In the case of second layer, we are discussing about the query evaluation engine. So what is a query evaluation engine? Used for to executing the queries. Actually, that will be referred to as a query processor totally. So in that query processor having query evaluation engine, DDL interpreter, DML interpreter, and another one is the application programs. Am I right? So all these are in the query processor. What is the third layer of the DBMS architecture? So that is nothing but storage manager. So which type of elements are we are considering into the storage manager, transaction manager, lock manager, recovery manager, okay, concurrency control, and a buffer manager, disk space manager. So that means all these are used for to maintaining the transactions. So transaction manager responsibility is executing the transactions efficiently by the DBMS. So what is the purpose of lock manager? Issuing the locks for the particular transactions. So for example, if they are based upon to the shared mode or maybe the exclusive lock mode. Okay. So in the same way, In the same way, recovery manager. What is the purpose of recovery manager? To recover the data. If any time of the situations, if any type of the crashes occurring to the system, so then, so which are committed to the disk, those are able to retrieve from the system. So that is the main purpose of using the recovery manager. So now we are discussing the topic is crash recovery. So how we are recover the data from the crashes. So this is the very important question in the exam point of view. Please remember three things. Those only those three steps are used for to recover the DBMS. Okay, so the DBMS data. So those are the first one is analysis. Okay, first of all, we try to observe. So how many number of transactions are active and how many number of transactions are not active. So during the occurrence of the crashes to the system. Okay, crashes means nothing but maybe the failure. So maybe the system failure or maybe the logical error or maybe the system error. Okay. So first of all, here we try to perform analysis. Okay. Next, we try to perform the redo operation, which are already committed to the disk. So we try to perform the undo operation, which are not committed to the disk at the time of occurrence of the crash. So that means here, so which are active, so those are we are able to record from the database. So that is the property of atomicity, right? What is the property of atomicity? So all operations should be atomic. So that means, so consider either all actions of the transaction or not consider any one of the action in a transaction. Okay, I hope my voice is audible to everyone. Please wait, just wait 1 minute. Yeah. Okay, what is the property of atomicity? So atomicity is nothing but useful for so nothing but consider which are successfully completed of the actions on a transaction. So only those are considered. So once the transaction is completed to the disk, okay, then we are able to retrieve the data after occurring any type of the failures to the system also. Okay, now we try to discuss about what is the crash recovery. Actually, it is a property of to maintain the atomicity and durability. Okay, so in the exam point of view, asking in different types of ways. So how we can say what is the purpose of using the atomicity and durability? What is the purpose of isolation and consistency? So what is the serializability? So how we are view the serializability like this. So maybe the question is asking in different type of way, but the answer is same. Okay, and I try to focus on the second part of the last unit. So that is storage and indexing. Okay, so I will try to discuss the topics from tomorrow onwards from the storage and indexing. Okay, if it is possible for me, I will try to today start the topic first. Okay, first of all, we try to see what is a crash recovery. So DBMS is a highly complex system which with hundreds of transactions being executed every second. So that means for every second, number of transactions are executed by the DBMS. The durability and robustness of a DBMS depends on its complex architecture and its underlying hardware system software. So that means here, so the capacity of the DBMS is based upon so nothing but here hardware system at the same time software also. So that means how many number of instructions are or how many number of transactions are executed by the system is based upon the capacity of DBMS, right? So if it fails or crashes, so those type of transactions expected that system would follow some sort of algorithm or techniques to recover loss of data. So that means in some type of situations occurring the failure to the system. So after executing the transaction, then how we are retrieving the our required data from the database. So that means once the data is committed to the disk, so the data will be permanently stored into the database. Okay, but in some type of situations occurring the crashes to the system. So even the occurring the crashes to the system, what is the meaning of crashes? Means nothing but a error or maybe the failures. Okay, so those type of failures to the occurring to the system. So at that time of the situation also we are able to recover the data from the failures. Okay, so now we try to discuss about the failure classification. to see where the problem has occurred. We generalize failure into various categories as follows. So the first one is transaction failure. We also know about this. So what are the states of the transaction actually? Active transaction, partial completed state, failure state, and another one is the aborted state. So we also know about this. Once the transaction starts its execution, it is in the active state. So if it is executing some of the actions in a transaction, that is in the partial completed state. If it is successfully completing the all actions of the transaction, it is in the completed state. So for example, during the execution of the transaction occurring any type of the failure, so that is in the failure state, and that will be leads to the abort state also. And the same transaction again will be restarted by the Dbms, and it will be identified as a new transaction. We also know about it. Okay, so that means here occurring the transaction failures. So that is the first one. So I will just try to say now. So a transaction has to abort when it fails to execute, or when it reaches a point from where it can't go to any further. So this is called a transaction failure, where only few transactions are processed or cut. So that means here some of the transactions may be failure. So maybe the cause is maybe the requested data item is not available for the transaction to complete its execution. Okay, so maybe that is the reason. So at that time of the situation, these transactions will be occurring the failures. At the same time, those are will be restarted by the DBMS after some time. Okay, the reasons for the transaction failure. So one is logical errors and another one is the system errors. So what is the meaning of logical error? So where a transaction cannot complete because it has some code error or any internal error condition. So that means in some type of situations, some of the transactions are not able to perform its executions. Why? Because maybe the code having the wrong. Okay, so what is the meaning of code having the wrong? For example, maybe we want to deduct some amount from the account A. So for example, we want to deduct 1,000 rupees from the account A, but actual A balance is nil. Then how we can deduct the 1,000 rupees from the account A? So that is also nothing but one of the wrong in your code, right or not? So those type of errors. So that is nothing but a logical error. Okay, and another one is the system error. So where the database system itself terminates an active transaction because the DBMS is not able to execute it, or it has to stop because of some system condition. For example, in case of deadlock or resource unavailability, the system aborts an active transaction. So that means maybe the causes of resource unavailability or maybe the deadlock. What is the deadlock? So whenever the requested resource is not able to assigning the particular transaction, so then there is maybe the chance of occurring the deadlock. We also know about how we can specify whether the deadlock is occur or not. So I think you are studied in the operating system, am I right? So what are the necessary conditions to specify the deadlock? What are the necessary conditions to specify whether the deadlock is occurred to the system or not? Can you say anyone? Can you respond through chat box once? Anyone, please. I will give you the time for to this. So why? Because this is very important topic. If you know about this, please try to send me through chat box. What are the necessary conditions to occurring the deadlock? What are the necessary conditions for deadlock? Actually, here we are considered four types of conditions. What are they? Please respond through anyone chat box. I think you are already studied in the operating system. So anyhow, I will try to say about that. So one is mutual exclusion. Mutual exclusion. Okay. And the second one is no preemption. Please remember all these things. So maybe these topics are used in your operating system subject. Okay. No one is not giving me the reply. Don't know what's the reason actually. So no preemption. Okay. No preemption. And the third one is circular weight. and the fourth one is hold and wait. So if these conditions are happen, then we can declare that deadlock is occurred to the system. So please try to observe one's chart box. So I'm sending those types of four conditions. What are the necessary conditions for occurring the deadlock? So the first one is mutual exclusion, and second one is no preemption, and third one is circular wait, and the fourth one is hold and wait. So what it means actually? So what is the meaning of mutual exclusion means here? So if any one of the what is the meaning of mutual exclusion? So here no one of the transaction not performing the mutual exclusion, so that is also a problem. And another one, no preemption. For example, one transaction already holds some particular resource or data item. Okay, now another transaction wants this particular data item. Now if the property is no preemption means, so this transaction does not releasing the requested data item, then automatically the transaction in deadlock. Am I right? In the same way, circular wait. So what is the meaning of circular wait? So that means if these transactions and resources allocated for the particular data item, so these are forming as a cycle. So that is also a one of the cause to occurring the deadlock, and another one is the hold and wait. So that means before we try to specify the deadlock is occurred to the system, first of all, the transaction should be hold one data item and requesting another data item. Okay, so if this situation is happened, then only we are specifying deadlock is occur to the system. Okay, I hope all of the members able to understood. Even though you are not understood, there is no problem actually. Why? Because maybe your operating system sir will be explain about that. Don't worry about this. Okay. So, but that is the very important topic. In the case of Dbms, also deadlocks are occurred. So, how we can explain the deadlock means? So, whenever the requested resource is not available to the transaction, then there is maybe the chance of occurring the deadlock. Then, what are the necessary conditions? How you can declare clearly the deadlock is occurred to the system or not? So, that is based upon those four conditions. Okay. So that means here the transaction failures are occurred in the two types of cases. What are they? So one is the logical error. That means if any time of the situation, if the error code is there, so they're also occurring the problem. And another case is, so for example, maybe the system fault at the same time. So in some type of situations, maybe the deadlocks are also occurred, or maybe so resource unavailability for to the transactions also. And next one, we'll try to discuss about the system crash. So there are problems external to the system that may cause the system to stop abruptly and cause the system to crash. For example, interruptions in power supply may cause the failure of underlying the hardware or software failure. So that means in some type of situations may be occurring the problems with the power failure. At the same time, in some type of situations occurring the software failures, or maybe in some type of situations hardware failures. So that means whatever it may be the problem, then automatically system will be crashes here. So that means so whatever it may be the at present. So which type of transactions are currently executed by the DBMS? So those are in the partial complete state. So if they are in the partial complete state, those type of transactions are not considered. So which type of transactions are we are considered already? Which type of transactions are already committed to the disk? So only those are considered. So that means for any recovery, please remember this. If you're having the chance, please note down this. So just we are having the three steps to recover the data. What are they? So the first one is analysis. Okay. Second one is redo. And third one is undo. So for example, just you consider like as a fire accident. For example, maybe if for example, maybe occurring the fire accident. So then which type of things are we are considered? So how much of loss is there? So here we are performing some analysis. So which type of things are we are able to recover and which type of things are we are not able to recover. So the second step is we try to perform recover. So which type of things are we are able to reuse. So like maybe steel, maybe iron. So those type of things will be we are able to reuse even though occurring in the fire accident. So if it is a little bit of the fire accident, so we will be able to use that. But we can't able to use plastic or maybe some covers. Okay, so those type of things we are not able to recover that. Then, so those type of things are we are collected and removed from that particular location. In the same way, here recovery also data recovery. So first of all, we are performing the analysis, which are dirty pages and which are active pages. So what is the meaning of dirty pages means which are not committed to the disk. So those type of transactions will be considered as the dirty pages. Okay. And so which are active pages means which are already committed to the disk. So that means here, so how many number of transactions we are able to recover that, and how many number of transactions not able to recover that. So this is nothing but the analysis. Now we are performing the redo. So redo means nothing but repeating the, so nothing but recover the transactions which are already committed to the disk. So how we can know so which are committed? So that is based upon to the checkpoints. So that means based upon to the timestamp values. So based upon to that particular timestamp value, we are able to recover the transaction. So next undo means nothing but which are not committed to the disk. Those are performing the undo operation on particular transaction. Okay. So these are the basic three steps for recovery type of any type of recovery. For example, if it is a log-based recovery, or maybe it is a Harris recovery algorithm. So whatever it may be the algorithm, so but the steps are same. Okay, please try to remember this, and this is the one of the important question in the exam point of view. Okay, next, if you are observed here, examples may include the operating system errors, disk failure. So in early days of technology of evaluation, it was a common problem where hard disk drives or storage drives used to fail frequently. So these type of problems are occurred frequently in the case of disk failure. Disk failures include the formation of bad sectors, unreachable to the disk had a crash, or any other failure which destroys all part of the disk storage. So that means some type of situations acting the transaction failures, system crashes, or maybe the disk failure. Okay. So whatever it may be the situation, you try to recover the data from the database if those type of transactions are committed to the disk. Okay. I hope all of the members are able to understood this. So now up to now we are discussing about what are the different types of failures. Okay. System errors, logical errors, system crashes. Okay. Hardware failure, and those type of errors will be considered in the failure classification. Okay, now we'll try to discuss about the storage structure. In the last class also we are discussing about this, but here we are discussing about volatile storage and non-volatile storage. What is the meaning of now volatile storage? So it is nothing but a temporary storage. Okay, so please try to observe on the screen. We have already described in the storage system. In brief, the storage structure can be divided into the two categories. What are the volatile storage and another one is non-volatile storage. What is the meaning of volatile storage? It will be changes from time to time. So once some data is stored into the volatile storage, maybe the chance we are able to edit that whatever it may be we are storing the data into the particular storage. Okay, as the name suggests, the volatile storage cannot survive the system crashes. Volatile storage devices are placed very close to the CPU. In the last class also I'm saying about that. So which type of devices are directly attached to the CPU? So the type of the storage will be referred as a primary storage. The name is implies primary. Okay. So which type of devices are not directly connected to the CPU? Those are referred as secondary storage. Okay. So normally they are embedded onto the cheapest itself. For example, main memory and cache memory are the examples of volatile storage. Why? Because so those are having the access time is very low. So, but speed is also very high compared with the remaining storage devices. But the storage capacity is very low compared with the secondary storage device. Okay, so they are very fast but can store only small amount of information. Okay, so we also know about that fastest memory is nothing but a cache. So that is provided between the CPU and main memory to reducing the cycles to retrieve the required data. We also know about this. I think you are studied into the, I think, operating system, right? So you are calculating the throughput, time delay, access time, right? Response time. So all these are we are calculated. Okay, next one is the non-volatile storage. These memories are made to survive system crashes. They are huge in data storage capacity but slower in accessibility. So that means these are having very large amount of data. So these are able to storing very large amount of data, but we can't access easily. So why? Because these sizes are very high, but the speed is very low to giving the retrieve data. Okay, so we are not able to retrieve the data required retrieve data, that is not possible in the, that is not easy to retrieving the data from the particular storage. Okay, here slower in accessibility, but storage capacity is very high. Okay, examples may include hard disks, magnetic tapes, flash memory, and these are also referred to as a permanent storage or maybe the secondary storage. Okay, I hope all of the members able to understand this. Okay, now try to discuss the topic is recovery and atomosity. Okay, so I think you are able to explain about these two types of topics. What is the meaning of recovery? Whenever occurring the failure, then we are able to recover the data. What are the steps we need to recover the data? I'm already saying about that analysis, redo, and undo. Okay, then what is atomosity? Atomosity means nothing but if the transaction successfully executing the all its operations, then that type of the thing will be considered. Or we are not considering any one of the operation in a transaction. That is the property of atomosity. So if we are maintaining the atomosity, then we can able to record the transaction, right? So whenever when a system crashes, it may have several transactions being executed and various files opened from them to modify the data item. So that means when a system crashes, it may have several transactions being executed and various files open for them to modify the data. Transactions are made of various operations which are in atomic nature. So, but according to the acid properties of the DBMS, atomosity transactions as a whole must be maintained. That is, either all operations are executed or none of the operations are executed. Right? So, when a DBMS recovers from the crash, it should be maintained in the following. So that is the first one. It should check the states of the all transactions which were being executed. So that means here we are performing the analysis. Okay, a transaction may be in the middle of some operation. The DBMS must ensure that atomosity of the transaction in this case. So that means, so for example, so in some type of situations, failures are occurred to the system. At that time, some of the transactions are maybe in the middle of the execution. Those type of transactions are also in the failure state. Okay, why? Because we are not that is not equal with the atmospheric. So it should check whether the transaction can be completed now or it needs to be rolled back. So what is the meaning of rollback here? So nothing but we try to remove those type of transactions. Okay. So no transactions would be allowed to leave the DBMS in inconsistent state. So that means here, so any type of the transactions are not allowed. So in the inconsistent state. Okay, there are two types of techniques which can help in a DBMS recovering as well as maintaining the atmosphere of transaction. So maintaining the logs of each transaction. What is a log? Log is nothing but a history of the transaction. So nothing but the history of the transaction execution. So that means if the transaction is executed in that particular time. So in the previous time, in the previous case, I'm explaining about the checkpoints. So how we can know the checkpoints? So it is nothing but giving the some snapshot of the DBMS execution of the transaction. Okay, here we are maintaining the log. So log means nothing but history of the transaction executions. Maintaining the log of each transaction and writing them onto some stable storage before actually modifying the database. So that means before modifying into the database, so we are based upon the some stable storage. So maintaining shadow basing where changes are done on volatile memory and later the actual database is updated. So that means here we are using two types of techniques to maintaining the recovery and atmosphere. Okay. So now we try to see what is a log-based recovery. Just I'm saying about that. So what are it may be the transaction execution that is updated into the log. If it is committed or not, if it is executed or not, currently it is executed or not. So whether it starts the execution or not. So all these types of updates are maintained in the log. So just to try to please observe once. So log is a sequence of records which maintains the records of actions performed by transaction. So it is important that the logs are written prior to the actual modification and stored in the stable storage media, which is fail safe. Log-based recovery as follows. The log file is kept on stable storage media. When transaction enter into the system and starts its execution, it writes a log about it. So that means, for example, here TN start. What is the meaning of TN start? So the particular transaction is starting its execution. So that type of update is maintained in the log. So whenever, what is the time, in which time starts the execution of that particular transaction. For example, so here we are consider the two types of timings here. So one is the system time, and another time is counter clock. So maybe for example, system time means nothing but according to our time. For example, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, like this. So what is the meaning of counting clock means nothing but so it will be executed maybe I executed just maybe 5 seconds before, or maybe 10 seconds before, or 30 minutes before, like this. So just only here we are calculating the time. But in the case of system clock, we are considered with the according to the system time or normal time. Okay. So when a transaction modifies an item X, it writes logs as follows. So Tn, X, V, V1 and V2. So it reads Tn has changed the value of X from V1 to V2. So that means if we are performing any updation in the particular data item, so that is also maintained in the log. When the transaction finish its logs, so then Tn commit. What it means? So that means here we are maintaining the total actions of the transaction maintained into the log. So, for example, during the execution of the transaction occurring any type of the failure to the system, then verifying the log in which time the transaction hang occurring the failure. So, if it is if the crashes to the if the crash is occur after the after performing the commit, so then we are easily record the transaction, right? So this is the main advantage of you maintaining the log. So the database can be modified using the two types of approaches: deferred database modification, immediate database modification. I think the name is implies. Here, all logs written onto the stable storage and the database is updated when transaction commits. Okay, so that means here all logs are written onto the stable storage and the database is updated when a transaction commits. So that means here we are consider lot of time. So immediate database modification means each log follows an actual database modification. That is, database is modified immediately after the every operation. So that means at each and every time of the operation, we are maintaining the updates to the database. So that means here we are having the two types of approaches: forced approach and another one is normal approach. So if it is a forced approach, it is related with the immediate database modification. So that means if we are performing any type of the modification in the database, so that is immediately written to the disk. So, but in the case of deferred database modification, here we are all logs are updated after the completion of transaction commit. Okay. I hope all of the members able to understood whatever it may be I'm saying about that up to now. Okay, please try to understand carefully why, because these are very important topics. Okay. So I will try to upload this video into the YouTube. So if you having any type of the doubt, you can please try to watch once. Okay. Still, if you having any type of the doubts, you can ask me now. Okay. So next, we try to discuss about the recovery with the concurrent transaction. Okay. So when more than one transaction are being executed in parallel, the logs are interleaved. So at the time of recovery, it would become hard for the recovery for the system to backtrack all backlogs and then start recovery. To ease this situation, most modern DBMS the concept of checkpoints. Okay. So that means when we are allowing more number of transactions at a time to performing the execution. So during the execution of these transactions, maybe occurring the failure. So if it is a interleaved schedule, so then we are not easily recover the data from the database. Why? Because a lot of transactions are there. So that's why here we are based upon to the checkpoints. What is the checkpoint? Keeping and maintaining the logs in real time and in real environment may fill out all the memory space available in the system. As time passes, the log file may grow too big to be handled at all. Checkpoint is a mechanism where all the previous logs are removed from the system and stored permanently in the storage disk. Checkpoint declares a point before which the DBMS was in consistent state and all the transactions were complete. So nothing but checkpoint is nothing but a snapshot of the DBMS. So all these things are maintained into the storage. So then how we are recover this? So when a system with concurrent transactions crashes and recovers, it behaves in the following manner. So if you observe here, checkpoint is there. So T1, T2, T3, T4. So if you observe here, which are within the checkpoint, so those are we are able to recover. So please observe this diagram. The recovery system reads the log backwards from the end to the last checkpoint. So it maintains two lists, undo list and redo list. So if the recovery system sees the long with a tn start and tn commit, or uh, or just tn commit, it puts the transaction in the redo list. If the recovery system seeing the long tn start but no commit about and found this and maintain in the undo list. All the transactions in the undo list are then undone and their logs are already removed. So all the transactions in the redo list and their previous logs are removed and then redone before saying their log. So that means here, just I'm saying about that. So analysis, redo, and undo. Here, which are committed. So those type of transactions maintained into the redo list. If they are not committed, those are maintained into the undo list. If they are maintained into the undo list, what it means, those are undone. And if these are which are we are maintaining the redo list, those are performed to be redone. Simple. So that means here we are able to identify by using the checklist. Okay, I hope all of the members able to understood what I'm saying up to now. So today we are just discussing about so what is the system crashes, what are the types of failures, and how to we are recover the data, what is a what is a checkpoint. Okay, so we will try to discuss remaining topics in the next class. Okay, if you're having any type of the problems, you can ask me now. Otherwise, we will end the session today. If you're having any type of the problems, you can ask me now, and all of the members, please submit the assignment within the time. Okay, please try to submit the assignment within the time. So my end my session now. Okay, thank you, Nandan. Take care, all of you.